No one hits that far in crosswinds, declared the SEAL instructor, watching. His elite snipers miss target after target. The old man, raking leaves nearby, paused, glanced at the fluttering flag, then at the distant target. "Excuse me," he said quietly. "But the wind's coming from the northeast at about 15 knots. Mind if I show you something?" "From which city in the world are you watching this story today? If stories like this move you, consider subscribing to Hidden Heroes for more tales of quiet legends walking among us." The morning sun cast long shadows across the Naval Special Warfare Training facility in Coronado, California. Arthur Blackwood pushed his maintenance cart along the perimeter of the shooting range, the same route he'd taken every Tuesday for the past 12 years. At 68, his weathered hands moved with methodical precision, checking irrigation lines, trimming hedges, collecting spent brass casings that the SEALs left scattered across the ground. To the young operators, he was furniture. Background noise, just another civilian contractor keeping the base operational while real warriors trained for real missions. Lieutenant Jake Parker adjusted his scope for the third time, sweat beading despite the cool morning air. 800 yards downrange, a human silhouette target swayed slightly in the Pacific breeze. Around him, 5 other SEAL snipers lay prone, their Barrett M107 rifles trained on identical targets. "Wind's playing games today," muttered Petty Officer Rodriguez, squinting through his optics. "Gusting between 10 and 20 knots, Master Chief." Instructor Williams paced behind them, his voice carrying the frustration of a man watching his best student struggle. "This is basic marksmanship, gentlemen. 800 yards should be a chip shot for operators of your caliber." Parker squeezed the trigger. The .50 caliber round cracked through the air, but the spotter's call confirmed what everyone could see through their scopes. Miss. Low and right. "Damn, crosswinds." Parker spat, working the bolt to chamber. Another round. That's when they heard the voice. "Excuse me." The words were quiet, almost apologetic. 6 heads turned to see Arthur standing behind the firing line, his rake still in hand. Work gloves dusty from the morning's labor. His faded blue coveralls bore the Naval Facilities logo, and his weathered baseball cap sat askew over silver hair. "But the wind's coming from the northeast at about 15 knots, he continued, his voice carrying a subtle authority that made the operators pause. "And at this elevation with the marine layer, well, you might want to compensate about 3 minutes of angle left and 1 minute of angle up." The silence stretched for several heartbeats. Then Lieutenant Parker burst out laughing. "Did the gardener just try to teach us windage?" Rodriguez joined in. "What's next, Gramps? Going to show us how to clear a room with a leaf blower?" Even Master Chief Williams cracked a smile. "Arthur, right? I appreciate the input. But these men are trained precision marksmen." Arthur nodded slowly, his gray eyes moving from the flag whipping in the breeze to the distant targets. "Of course, Master Chief, I was just, well, I used to do a little hunting back in the day." "Hunting?" Parker repeated, his voice dripping with condescension. "Let me guess. Deer season with a 36. "Something like that," Arthur replied quietly. Master Chief Williams was about to dismiss the old groundskeeper when something in Arthur's demeanor gave him pause. There was a stillness about the man, a way he held himself that seemed oddly familiar. Williams had spent 30 years in special operations, and he'd learned to recognize certain qualities in men who'd seen combat. Tell you what, Arthur, Williams said slowly. Why don't you show us what you learned? Hunting? The suggestion hung in the air like gunpowder smoke. Parker sat up, incredulous. Master Chief, you can't be serious. Dead serious, Lieutenant. If Mr. Blackwood here thinks he can do better than Navy SEALs, let's see what he's got. Arthur hesitated. For 12 years, he'd kept his head down, content to tend his gardens, and live quietly in the shadows of his past. But watching these young warriors struggle with fundamentals that had once been second nature to him, old instincts stirred. I wouldn't want to presume. No presumption, Williams interrupted. Consider it a learning opportunity for all of us. Arthur set down his rake and approached the firing line. His movements were deliberate, economical. No wasted motion. He knelt beside Parker's position, his weathered hands hovering over the barium 107. May I? Parker slid aside, still smirking. Knock yourself out, old man. But when you throw your shoulder out, don't blame us. Arthur positioned himself behind the rifle with fluid precision. His body seemed to melt into the weapon, achieving that perfect union of man and machine that only comes from thousands of hours of practice. He didn't rush to the scope. Instead, he lay still for a long moment, reading the environment. Barometric pressures dropping, he murmured more to himself than to the watching SEALs. Wind steady. At 15 knots, but see how the grass is bending. There's a thermal updraft about halfway to target. He finally settled behind the scope, his breathing immediately falling into the controlled rhythm that snipers know by heart. His finger found the trigger, but he didn't rush. He waited, one breath, two. On the third exhale, Arthur's finger moved with surgical precision. The Barrett roared, its muzzle blast kicking up dust and rattling equipment. Through their spotting scopes, 6 SEAL snipers watched the impossible happen. The target didn't just hit, it obliterated. The round struck dead center mass, tearing through the silhouette with devastating accuracy. The silence that followed was profound. Beginner's luck, Parker whispered, but his voice lacked conviction. Arthur worked the bolt smoothly, chambering another round. This time, he didn't pause to read the wind. The second shot came within 30 seconds of the first. Another perfect hit. The third shot came even faster. And the fourth. By the fifth round, the target was barely recognizable, shredded by precision that bordered on supernatural. Master Chief Williams lowered his binoculars, his expression unreadable. Arthur, he said quietly. What did you say you used to hunt? Arthur slowly lifted his head from the scope, his gray eyes holding depths that hadn't been there moments before. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of decades. Different kind of hunting. Master Chief. Williams studied the old man's face, and suddenly details clicked into place. The way he'd handled the rifle, the breathing technique, the casual mention of MOA adjustments and thermal updrafts, and something else, a quality of stillness that Williams had only seen in one type of man. What's your last name again, Arthur? Blackwood. The name hit Williams like a physical blow. He'd heard that name before. Whispered in the hallways of Quantico. Spoken with reverence in Marine sniper schools, carved into the memory of anyone who'd studied long-range precision shooting. Arthur Blackwood. Williams repeated slowly. Force Recon. Vietnam. Arthur nodded once. Jesus Christ, Rodriguez breathed. You're the Blackwood, the ghost of the Mian. The SEALs stared in stunned silence. Every sniper in the military knew the legend of Arthur Blackwood, the Marine who'd held the confirmed kill record for over 40 years. The man who'd single-handedly changed the course of 3 major engagements in Vietnam, the sniper who'd vanished from military records in 1975 and become a ghost story told in warrior circles. Parker's cockiness evaporated entirely. Sir, we didn't know. Arthur stood slowly, his joints protesting after decades of hard labor. No reason you should. That was a long time ago in a different world. He handed the Barrett back to Parker with the same care he'd shown while pruning roses. But the wind reading still applies. Northeast at 15 knots. Compensate 3. Left, 1 up. Master Chief Williams stepped forward, his voice carrying newfound respect. Mr. Blackwood, I think my men could learn a great deal from you. Arthur shook his head gently. They're fine operators, Master Chief. They just needed to remember that shooting isn't about the technology. It's about understanding the environment. The wind doesn't care about your rank or your training. It only responds to respect and patience. He picked up his rake, preparing to return to his duties. Besides, I'm just the groundskeeper. You wouldn't want word getting out that your SEALs were taking shooting lessons from the gardener. Williams watched the old man walk away, his mind racing. How many other legends were hiding in plain sight? How many quiet heroes pushed brooms and trimmed hedges while warriors in training learned their craft? Mr. Blackwood, he called out. Arthur paused, turning back. Would you mind? That is, if you had time, perhaps you could show my snipers a few more techniques from your hunting days. Arthur considered the request, his eyes moving across the young faces that now looked at him with genuine respect rather than dismissive amusement. I suppose I could spare an hour or two after I finished the irrigation system. For the next 3 months, Arthur Blackwood became an unofficial instructor at the Naval Special Warfare Training Facility. He taught skills that couldn't be found in any manual: how to read microclimates, how to calculate for humidity variations, how to become one with the environment rather than fighting against it. The young SEALs learned more than marksmanship. They learned humility. They learned that wisdom doesn't always come in the uniform you expect, and they learned to never, ever underestimate the quiet old man with weathered hands and knowing eyes. Lieutenant Parker, whose arrogance had started it all, became Arthur's most dedicated student. Under the old Marine's guidance, his shooting improved dramatically, but more importantly, his character began to match his skills. Arthur Blackwood had indeed been the ghost of the Mian, a Marine Force Recon sniper with 347 confirmed kills during his 3 tours in Vietnam. He'd earned the Medal of Honor for a mission that saved an entire company, though the details remained classified decades later. When the war ended, he'd done what many warriors do. He'd disappeared into civilian life, seeking peace in the simple work of his hands. For 12 years. He'd found that peace tending gardens at the place where America's finest warriors trained. But on one Tuesday morning, watching young operators struggle with fundamentals he'd mastered half a century ago, the ghost had allowed himself to become visible once more. Sometimes the most extraordinary people are hiding in the most ordinary places. They're the janitors who know engineering, the gardeners who understand warfare, the quiet old men whose steady hands once changed the world. Have you ever met someone whose true story was far different from what you first believed? Tell us in the comments below. And if stories like Arthur Blackwood's remind you that heroes walk among us every day, subscribe to Hidden Heroes for more tales of quiet legends. Because the next time you see someone going quietly about their work, remember you might be looking at history itself disguised as an ordinary Tuesday morning. This story is a work of fiction, created to honor the spirit of service, sacrifice, and the quiet heroes who walk among us. Any resemblance to actual persons or events is purely coincidental.